Hello, everyone, and welcome to Language of Leadership. I am your host, Mark Iorio. I've got Ellen Smolko with me today. Ellen is the founder and fractional CMO of Foresight Performance. She's also called Marketing Medic and a wonderful consultant. Ellen, it's great to have you on the program. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me here, Mark. I'm glad to be here.
Yes, indeed. Ellen, this morning you posted something on LinkedIn that I thought was really cool, really compelling. And it was an image of a stranger coming to your website to look at what they see and how they feel when they see the imagery and the language on the website. Can you explain to the audience what that was all about? Because I think that was really a great post this morning, and I think very good for people who are not quite understanding what marketing is all about.
Thank you for the compliment, and yes, I'm happy to explain it. We create content and we put it out for the public to consume. But very rarely do we consider what the impact of that content is on the people who find it. And the case of a website is a great way to talk about people who accidentally bump into you, which happens in so many different arenas. But it certainly happens on the internet when people were going to search and just happen upon your website. Yep. And today, with AI, it happens even more frequently. So we have to be aware of the content that we're putting out, the language that we're using, and what we're trying to say versus what we are actually conveying.
That's such a great point. It's really about, look, it's about the feelings that you get when you're interacting with a brand. And,
yes.
A lot of times, there's that inconsistency with what we say we are, who we say we are, and the delivery of that message. So I know you do a lot of that consulting work. You've had some huge jobs in your life with some large companies and in positions as Chief Marketing Officer. Talk a little bit about what that feeling is when you're trying to lure in or bring a prospect into a brand experience.
Mark, a lot of people overlook how they should be feeling when the brand really connects with the person that they are speaking to. Mm-hmm. For the owner of the brand, the business owner who wishes to connect their brand to the public, the consuming public, that feeling should be like, oh my God, they know me and I feel I've known them all my life.
Yeah.
And if you are building your brand and using the right messaging to match who you are and what you say you do, that's the feeling you get. It doesn't feel like you are fighting for a sale.
So well said. We say this often, Ellen, that people want to buy from you for the same reason people want to come and work for you. If they get this feeling that I belong here, I want to be a part of this brand experience, then you're going to have a recruiting opportunity as well with people that really want to come and work with your organization. Why is it that you've worked for some Fortune 50 companies, Fortune 10 companies probably in your lifetime? Why is it that there is a distinguishing feature in a lot of businesses between marketing and the brand experience? Marketing is everything, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It really is. And that's a really good, you used a really critical term there, belonging. That's where marketing should be focused, but we've gotten to a point, excuse me, where A lot of people think marketing is strictly about getting the word out, which is really advertising.
Yes.
Before you put the word out, you have to develop everything about your business. That means your company, your culture, your brand, your products, your services, your pricing strategy, how you're going to approach the market. These are all considerations that have to be taken by marketing, and a good chief marketing officer is going to reach out to all of these stakeholders in all of those areas, including culture, to learn as much as they can before they create the messaging strategy.
You make such great points. I think that, there's a distinguishing feature between advertising and marketing touches everything. The brand touches everything. It's and you mentioned culture a couple of times, and I appreciate that, because that's the work that we do, and trying to get people to align their culture with the brand promise that they make on a regular basis. But I think all too often people take the word brand and they think of it as the imagery, the logo or something, but it's not, it's everything. So when you engage with a new prospect, right, and your client base, and this vast experience that Ellen Smolko brings to the table, what are the first couple of things that you do with a new client, a new prospect? How do you engage with them in the very beginning?
The very first thing I do is I ask them to tell me who they think they are. I don't ask it quite that way. I will ask, what is your mission? What's your vision? What are your values? What is your product offer, and who really wants to hear about it, or who do you believe wants to hear about it? Who do you perceive to be your best customer? And what I frequently find is that a lot of those things are out of alignment with segments of the other segments of their business, such as their culture. So if you want to provide world-class service and white glove service, which makes people feel really cared for in those words, your behavior has to match that.
Absolutely.
And if it doesn't, then we've got a problem. So the first thing I do is I ask you what your perception of who you are is. Then I take that and I measure it using tools that gauge market temperature on what the market would perceive you to be, who the market would perceive. And this morning, the post that I put up that you referenced in the beginning was about AI. Okay. I use some sophisticated tools that bring AI into the tool, but an easy way to determine what does my public persona look like is to open your favorite AI tool, point it in the direction of all of your online properties, like your Google business profile and your website, and ask it, tell me what you know about this company from these resources. And tell me what you perceive this company to be about.
I'm
It's
sure
an eye-opening experience for a lot of people.
I'm sure you'll see a lot of very surprised people about what Grok or Chat GPT or Gemini says about your business. I will guarantee you that a lot of people will be very surprised and perhaps even shocked at what they see in terms of the results.
I wouldn't doubt it, because a lot of business owners, I'm going to use the phrase phone it in. When it comes to the content that goes on their website, they'll either hire a content developer, or their website developer will create it for them, or someone who does SEO will optimize it for them. And then the business owner is afraid, for some reason, to take ownership and say, no, that's not who we are. And sometimes it's really just the business owner being out of touch with their own brand, or the person they assign the task of reviewing the public-facing content
Yeah.
is out of sync with the brand and the culture.
Wow. I mean, that's such a smart comment. And speaking of phoning it in, when you engage with clients, just a general statement, what are some of the things that are lacking in terms of, let's say they don't have a CMO, a chief marketing officer, with the experience level that you bring to the table? What are some of the things, the shortcomings that you find when you're talking to the leaders of some of these organizations, besides phoning it in, as you mentioned with, and it's not everyone, it's just a lot of leaders do that. I just had that conversation the other day with someone. So what are some of those shortcomings that you see, Ellen?
So one of the biggest misalignments with marketing comes in the aspect of not fully understanding that marketing isn't just about your promotion. There are, in marketing, we call it the 4 Ps or the 4 pillars of marketing, which are your product, your price, your placement, which means the market, and your promotion. So promotion is what everybody thinks of. It's digital marketing, it's social media. That's where everybody's focus goes. The same level of care that you put into how you promote yourself has to go into the pieces that precede the promotion. So your product has to represent the value that you say it will convey. Your pricing strategy has to represent that we care about our customers and want to provide maximum value. And here's how we do it. Okay? When we talk about placement or the market, you really need to understand who does benefit the most from your product and service.
Yeah.
Because we all, in the beginning, take guesses, and then we have to fine-tune that along the way. One of the places I find a big disconnect is between who the business owner believes to be their best customer or their ideal client profile, and who the actual, using the numbers in their own accounting system, the real ideal customer profile is.
Wow.
So we frequently find, and I will start early in my engagement with a look at their P&L statement so that I can wrap my brain around their business, because that's what a chief marketing officer does.
Yeah.
Sure, they can manage and guide your digital marketing program, but that's only a small part of the value they bring.
Yeah.
It's the business aspect that we look at.
Wow. Well, that's a perfect segue. I feel like I'm in a master's class in marketing communications and business development, Ellen. So amazing that you put that together. Thank you for that. We're going to take a quick commercial break, folks. We'll be right back with more from Ellen Smolko after this message from our sponsors. Don't go away.
I love that we both got an awesome network and save money doing it.
I know, $25. I love that it's guaranteed for 3 years.
Hey, we're sitting on a sign here.
Switch and get Welcome Unlimited for $25 a line, guaranteed for 3 years. Verizon.
Welcome back to Language of Leadership. I am your host, Mark Iorio. I've got Ellen Smolko with me today. Ellen is the founder and fractional chief marketing officer for Foresight Performance, and also known as the marketing medic. But right before the break, we were having a great conversation about the 4 Ps. And as I said, I felt like I was back in class, Ellen. Thank you very much for that. It was great. But I really want to talk about you for a second here. I mean, your skill set is amazing, obviously. You've got a vast amount of experience and worked with some very large companies. You can mention them if you'd like, but your resume is pretty impressive. But what's more impressive to me, honestly, is you and the work that you do and the help that you give to others without any expectation. We were introduced by a good friend of ours, Kurt Fulcher introduced us, and what did you do? You helped me with my business. You were looking at little things with my business that, and what did you ask for? You asked for nothing in return. That's the Ellen Smolko I know, and that's the person that is giving. Now, I'm not saying that every single person watching this episode is going to get free advice. You have to pay Ellen at some point. But you are something, boy. You are really a helpful person.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have to say, that actually comes from the 2 people who were most influential in my business style development. And they weren't 2 people. I mean, you know, I have an MBA, I have a PhD. Those don't matter. I went to school with the basis for developing my business persona. Mm-hmm. And it came from my father and my grandfather, both of whom left a legacy behind them, not of having had customers in their businesses, but who developed friends who happened to pay them for what they did.
Yeah.
And it was evident. If I can share 2 quick stories.
Sure.
My grandfather grew up in the United States during World War II. After the war, through the Great Depression and into World War II, he had his own business. Afterwards, people had a tough time. His customers had a difficult time recovering because they were largely laborers and craftsmen. Mm-hmm. And back then, you weren't providing your craft far and wide. It was really constrained to an area.
Yeah.
And the area it was constrained to at the time was economically depressed still. So my grandfather had what was essentially an Italian grocery store. Mm-hmm. People would come in and say to him, his name was Mike, I didn't get work this week. My children are hungry. Can you let me buy some food on account? I'll pay you next week when I get a job. And my grandfather said, absolutely. What do you need? Yeah. Well, I just need a little. No. What do you need for the week? And then the customer would say, make sure you write it down in your book. And my grandfather would take out a book and he would write down the customer's name and the dollar amount on the order. Fast forward decades, because my grandfather was in his 70s when he passed, and that happened when he was in his 20s. So we're talking 5 decades later.
Wow.
And we buried my grandfather with the volumes of those accounting books that had more unpaid accounts than paid accounts.
Wow.
And he taught me that because of his generosity, not only was his community able to become better, But his business was able to become better because other people who could afford to pay heard about this wonderful man, and they built his business. He became a self-made millionaire,
Wow.
but he didn't once point to a bank account in his entire lifetime to any of his children or his grandchildren. He pointed to the success of his friendships.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Okay.
Yes.
And then my dad, who was actually his son-in-law, took over his business when he became too ill to continue running it.
Mm-hmm.
And he too built a business of friends. We used to tease my dad anywhere we went in the world on vacation. Somebody somewhere would walk up to him and say, "Nick, how are you? I didn't know you were going to be here."
That's funny.
Without fail.
Yeah.
When my dad passed away in 2012, his funeral passed through 4 towns, from the funeral home to the interment, the cemetery.
Wow.
We had 4 separate towns of police officers simultaneously stopping traffic for a caisson that was miles long,
Wow. Amazing.
with people who came to his funeral to honor the man he was.
Mm-hmm.
And if I learned anything from those 2 great men, it was that your legacy isn't about how much money you generated through your craft. It was about who you were. And that's how I connected to brand. Because your brand is not about who you say you are or who you say you want to be. It's about who you are.
Yep. Ellen, they're 2 wonderful stories, and they've made obviously those 2 men made a lasting impact on who you are as a person, because you do the same thing. You are doing the same thing your grandfather Mike and your dad Nick have done for decades, and it shows. It's just it's that giving personality, and we were talking about that yesterday. We had a networking event here that you unfortunately couldn't make it to, but our mutual friend Kurt Fulcher had the microphone for a few minutes, and he talked about that. He talked about giving to others without expectation. And some people have that. Some people feel like that's part of their DNA and who they are, and other people struggle with that. But you certainly don't. You continue to help folks all the time. So I really appreciate those stories.
That's a high compliment.
Well, it's the truth. So it's something that, and look, the other thing about this is that with your educational background, with your experience, you've got a wealth of knowledge that you're using to give back to others, right? So there's a breadth there, a deep and wide breadth of information that you've got in your head, in your intellect, bottled up, that you help you help pass on to other folks. I admire that. I really do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. It's part of the fabric of who I am.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that I discovered servant leadership, but I think it discovered me.
Yeah, I agree with that. Talk a little bit about your typical client base. Who are you helping? What size companies are they? Is it broad, wide, size, type of industry? What are you typically focused on?
I can work across industries.
Yeah.
I specialize only because it's a preference for me in professional services and IT and technology companies.
Yep.
From 3 million to 100 million is my strike zone, but I will reach out to companies that are even below 1 million because I want to see more people succeed.
Yeah.
That's my driver. I want to see others succeed. So I'll reach out to folks that are even, a little below $1 million. And the reason that I work with these companies, what I look for in them is they hit a frustration. They're getting traction to a certain point, but then they slide. And then they'll pick up a little more traction and slide. And they don't understand what's happening. And I can help them diagnose what's happening and fix it. That's why I trademarked myself as the marketing medic.
Right.
Because I essentially cure those anemic marketing results that cause the slides.
Yeah. It's not one easy, quick fix either. A lot of times, you said earlier, there's some little tweaks that can be made for some organizations, but a lot of times it's systemic. So when it becomes systemic, when you're doing your initial input session, right, and you see that there's a systematic problem in this organization, then you can insert yourself as a fractional CFO where you're working with the company for an extended period of time on a fractional basis, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's got to be really helpful, because a few minutes ago in this interview, you said something that most marketing people do not understand. And that is, the first thing you do is you look at their P&L. And people are they're going to watch this interview and say, well, wait a minute, I thought she was a marketing consultant. I thought she was a CMO. Yes, that's what CMOs do, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's, my proudest accomplishments, that I've worked for some large companies and sat in the chief marketing officer's seat at those companies.
Yep.
And I've helped them grow to hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. But those are not my proudest accomplishments. My proudest accomplishment is when I can help a solopreneur hire their first person and start building their pathway to millions of dollars in revenue for their company.
Yep. Ellen, you have been amazing. This has been a remarkable interview. I really appreciate your time and really enjoy the conversation. If you could please let everyone know how to get in touch with you, that would be fantastic.
Okay, so the easiest way to find me is to look for foresightperformance.com. I am connected to all of the email addresses on that site. That's my main site. Or you can reach out to me via text, email, or phone call at 862-259-2362.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ellen. And you're very active on LinkedIn as well, obviously. So
This is true. I'm on LinkedIn.
yeah.
I get so many LinkedIn messages, though. If somebody doesn't get a response to a message on LinkedIn, please reach out through one of the other avenues. Or even, I put a schedule link. You can actually schedule on my LinkedIn profile to have a quick conversation with me.
Great. Okay, folks. Ellen, thank you so much. Ellen, folks, that is a wrap for Language of Leadership. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful week.